Hello, everyone. I'm Ray Sanders, and you're listening to the Ray Sanders Leadership Podcast. And today I have a very special guest. I guess you could say all the way from Uruguay, but we know you're a local boy now, a U.S. citizen. My friend, author, speaker, and coach, Ariel Delgado. Thanks for being on the show today, Ariel.
Thank you, Ray, for having me. How's it going?
Man, it's not every day that I get to have my brother from another mother all the way down from South America on the show. But I'll never forget the first time that you and I met. We were serving a client together, and I was doing some executive coaching, and you were doing some of your work with the rest of the team. And I thought, that's a guy I want to get to know. And we've had an opportunity to kind of grow our friendship. And one of the things that I've often said about you when I introduce you to other people, as I said, I had no idea. I had no idea about this guy. You're so easy to underestimate. You're just a good-looking South American Latino, but man, God has done some amazing things in your life. And who would have thought that this farm kid from a little farm community down in Uruguay would become an executive here in the United States for a major national company, go through a lot in his life, and end up writing a book about his life. And that's what you're here on the show today to talk about.
Yes, Ray. Thank you so much again for having me. And I agree with the second part, that God has done a lot of things on me. I don't know about the Latino, all that stuff, but we'll leave it up to God. Yes, we're really excited, Ray, about the book that is coming out. So October. So the book is, man, I think it's impactful.
Well, let's not waste any time. Let's jump right into this. I mean, I think a lot of people would like to know, what is the mission of the book? Why did you decide to write the book? It's not easy writing a book. It takes time. And I'm sure that for you, unpacking a lot of what you put in this book, I mean, it's now in black and white. It's in writing. And it's taken you several years to even get to the point that you would talk about this publicly,
Right.
let alone put it in a book for your daughters. You now have 3 daughters, for them to see. And the things that are in this book, folks, I'm just going to tell you right now, this could be a Hollywood thriller, a blockbuster, but it's not all good. I mean, there's a lot of good that's come out of it.
Right.
But your story, man, it's crazy. So start us off. Tell us, why did you decide to write this book? What's the mission of the book? And then let's talk about it.
Thank you again, Ray. The first time I believe it was from God, I heard this voice, you have to write a book. It was when I was flying from Bogota, Colombia to Oklahoma about 2 years ago. We just finished 14 workshops with Family ID, the ministry that I work for, and I was coming back home with a heavy heart. Every time that I do a workshop with Family ID, I share my testimony. And specifically during this trip, I had a lot of families approach me after the workshop asking me for help. Because like you said, on the book, I'm not holding back. And the families are approaching me and asking me, what do I do? I'm about to get divorced. I'm addicted to porn. a lot of struggles. So I was coming back home with a heavy heart, and I was praying to God. I was like, God, what do I do? How can I help him? And that's the first time that I heard from God, you have to write a book. Honestly, I just didn't even pay attention to it. And let me tell you why. I did only 6 years of a school my whole life, because I started working when I was 9, and then when I did my first 6 years of a school, I stopped, and I started working with my dad. That's what needed to be done at the time. And so that's the first thing that came to my mind. And I think it was the enemy trying to convince me. When God told me, write a book, I was like, no, I can't. So I left it alone. And then a month later, a friend came to me and he goes, you have to write a book, Ariel. So I started, taking it seriously now. I started praying about it. And then I talked to the publisher, and we started writing the book about 2 years ago.
So to put this in the North American terms, 6 years in school, would that be the equivalent of 6th grade? Is it the same?
Yeah, elementary.
So elementary.
That's what I did.
And so you just really felt like, hey, who am I to write a book?
Right.
I've only been to 6th grade. My credentials don't set myself up for writing a book. But you continued to be nagged about it, and then God brought other people into your life,
Right.
and they urged you. Well, I'm going to tell you, I don't know how old you are on the cover of this book, folks. For some of you who are watching online, or maybe if you're just listening online, if you're watching online, you can see here that I'm holding up the cover of this book. I mean, this is a phenomenal cover. The name of the book, by the way, The Wounded Child, A Real Life Story of Healing and Hope. Now, this is you. Both of these pictures are you.
Yes, they are. The first, the one on the left, is the first ID I had. I was crying literally on that day when I got my first ID. I was 4 years old,
Wow.
and I saved that ID. I still have it, and when I showed it to the publisher, they goes, "This is it. We're gonna use it for your cover," and it was awesome. So yeah,
And that's the other thing that's neat about this book, folks. It's one thing to read a story, but Ariel has put other photos from his story in this book, and I think it makes it really even more authentic. Back to the mission, though. You felt like really you were called to do it, but you and your wife were talking about this book, and you kind of come up with a written, formal mission statement for this book. Do you remember what it is, or do you need to?
yeah. The Wounded Child will help you discover your emotional wounds first, and then to find a healing path.
Okay.
And it was easy to write that down, or I guess to come up with that, because that's what happened to me. I didn't even know I was wounded from my childhood. And if you don't know that you're wounded, how are you gonna find the solution? How are you gonna heal? So I think the book is gonna help you first identify your wounds, and then second, find a path for healing.
So many people, I mean, as parents, we get this more and more, and we know that we're not perfect, and we sometimes wonder, are we messing up our kids? But so many of us, we bury those things that have happened to us. And your story is a testimony to this. Once you can discover that, you can then turn that pain into purpose.
Right.
And that's exactly what you've done. Now, this book, it's a perfect type of book you can take on a plane with you. If you want to go to the beach or you're going on vacation, it's about 143, 150 pages, somewhere in there. You've got 11 chapters. So just kind of tell us the story. Walk us through the book as you see pleased. I may ask some questions along the way, but kind of give folks, I know you don't want to give them all of it, but certainly give us enough reason to think, I have to know more.
Okay. Well, like you said at the beginning, Ray, I've been in America for a while now, almost 20 years. I'm a citizen, and I can tell you that I accomplished the American dream. And I'm on my second journey for the American dream. I'll tell you in a second why. But it wasn't always that way. Like I said, I grew up in a poor family. I started working when I was 9, quit going to school 11, and I love my parents, and my parents did the best they could with what they had. They didn't have any resources. So, when I was 11, I remember going visiting bars with my dad, and my dad was a great man, and I hope you guys understand that I'm not. I love my dad, and he taught me a lot of great things. But unfortunately, alcohol got a hold of him, and then he was a different person. So, but, from an early age, I was just seeing my dad and his friends and other people at the bar talking about what it takes to be a man, and that's what I learned. That's what I modeled for over 20 years. In America, we would say that I was building my testimony, So, but for me at the time, it was normal. I grew up in that rough environment. My mom was staying home, and my dad was just going out with me, and we were just doing what men do, right? That's what I learned, that to be a man, you have to be tough. You don't cry. You don't ask for help. You're not vulnerable, and you don't have anybody in your corner. You just do it alone, and that's what I learned throughout the years. And so I went through some difficult challenges that you're going to find those on the book. I'm not holding back on with the book. So at 11, I went through something that really changed my life. It changed the next 20 to 25 years of my life. And today, I know what happened to me when I was 11. I didn't want to go through that, but today I know that it was a good thing for me because of that, I am the area that I am today. But like I said on the book, I talked about emotional wounds. I didn't even know that I was wounded until 36 years old. Imagine.
So what did your father do for a living?
My father, he was a manager of a farm. My mom was a cook there. And let me tell you, the farm was the best 8 to 9 years of my life. Because at the time, we were happy. Everything on the farm was sustainable. Chickens, cows, great beef, everything that you can imagine. It was awesome. And then when my dad lost the job at the farm, we lost the house. So we things started to getting worse a little bit. And my father started working for different people, butchering animal. He was good with the knife. He was good butchering, cows, pigs. And that's what we did. We did that together, and I learned that. And today I love cooking. I love all that because that's what my mom and my dad, passed. So, but that's what my father did. He worked on a farm until after my parents got divorced. He moved to a farm, and he died at the farm at the age of 67.
So I know what the book's about. I know the story. You alluded to it. I don't know how much you would want to go into it, but I think it's a critical thing, and it might connect with a lot of listeners. And I don't think you have to go into everything that's told in the book, but do you think it's appropriate, or how much of the story can you tell that when you were 11 that was something that's forever affected you?
So when I was 11, I was abused sexually by another man. And at the time, for sure, I didn't want to go through that. You're going to find some, not all the details, but some more details to understand the whole story if you read the book. That I will hope that you do. But that really, I can trace the next 25 years after that sexual abuse. I can just connect that back to that incident. Everything I did from that day on, it was to cover that. I feel guilt, shame. I feel that I wasn't a man, but I just swept that.
And you were you were a child, basically, 11 years old, and this was another man that took advantage. So many people that are listening who have lived through this, I think the terms that I have heard are grooming. They befriend you. They make you feel a certain way, and the next thing you know, something's happened, and you're young. You don't know. I mean, I like this person. I love this person. I care for this person, but not in that way, not in a romantic way. And you're like, something doesn't feel right about it. And once you come out on the other side of it, a lot of people bury it. Right. They try to hide it. And that's really what you did for many, many, many years. But in some ways, you try to overcome that by proving that you were the macho man and that you liked women, and you were going to prove that you weren't that kind of a man, that you were attracted to me. You were trying to prove that, no, I'm a red-blooded Latino. I'm gonna be with the ladies. I'm gonna show. My dad raised me to be a drinking, hell-raising kind of guy, and I'm gonna prove that I'm just the opposite of what this other person was. So, pick us up after that abuse. They can learn more about it in the book, but pick us up. What happened? Where did your life head?
Well, I started. I was drinking when I was 12, 13. And that was normal. And then things got worse. By the age of 14, 15, I was drinking 3 or 4 times a week and going out to nightclubs and, having, intimacy with the girls and not just lying, also lying about, to take girls to bed, lie. That was just, again, a normal life for me. But I realized today what I did, Ray, is I was just medicating my wounds. I didn't even know. I knew there was something there, but I never talked about it. Because, again, in our culture, you don't talk about it.
I've heard people use the term self-medicate. And in this day and age, I think a lot of people, the traditional, easy self-medication vices would be, say, alcohol. Certainly marijuana. It's become more and more prevalent. But now, even prescription drugs. But self-medication can take all kinds of forms. But here you are, really in your teenage years, trying to bury feelings and the ugly in your life with other things. And you kind of got to the point to where you realized that didn't work. So we fast forward a little bit, the latter part of your teens. Pick us up in that part of the story. I'm gonna take a peek at the book while you're talking and see where we're at in the story. So go ahead.
Yeah. Like I said, I was dating from an early age. Then at age 16, my parents got divorced, separated actually, and that really added more emotional wounds to my heart. I call it a backpack full of rocks. Rocks to me are emotional wounds, and if you don't empty that backpack, man, that backpack will take you down. And that's what it did with me. Even though from the outside you saw me, and I was great, but I was not. Inside I was broken. I was just there was not even one day that I would go to bed and not feel guilt and shame for what happened to me and for what I did after. You know what I mean? So when my parents got divorced, separated, that was just another punch that I was like, I can't recover from this. But again, I went back to what I learned. What do you do to be a man? You don't talk. Just hide it.
Stuff it.
That's it.
Put it in the backpack.
That's what I did. So fast forward, at the age of 23, I was building houses at the beach with my friend. We were doing well. The economy went down in 2002. And to give you a little bit of context, Uruguay has 3 million people, very small country. But we have Argentina to the south and Brazil to the north. Brazil is 300 million or even more. Argentina is 45 million. So we're very small. Again, we depend a lot from them. So economy went down really bad in 2002. So I told the girl that I was dating at the time, I was like, I can't not stay here. I need to go somewhere if I want to support my brothers and my sister. I have a sister who just 9 months older than me. She's 9 months. And then I have two brothers, twin brothers. They were 10 years younger than me. So they were 7 to 8 years old when my father left. And then when I was 23, they were 13. So they were still little.
So you're the oldest male, not the oldest child.
Right.
And in your culture, the family's livelihood, if dad's out of the picture, whether it be passed away or otherwise, you kind of take on this role.
You take on the role, yes.
And that's what you were doing.
Yeah, me and my sister and my mom too. But my brothers, until today, they see me as their dad, you know. So I feel responsible for my family. I was like, I need to support them. So age of 20, almost 24, the girl that I was dating at the time, she moved to Georgia, America. And then she invited me. She goes, hey, would you come with me? I was like, sure, I can follow you in about 6 months. And that's what I wanted to do. But then 2 weeks prior to my trip, we broke up over the phone. She was here. I was over there. I didn't have any money. The only money I had, it was the money for the ticket to go to Georgia with her. But we broke up. I was in trouble, you know. I was like, what do I do? So I remember that the day before the trip, my mom was doing a going away party. And I just told her, I was like, I'm not leaving. I don't have any money. And to go into America with a visitor visa with no money, you can't get in.
Right.
So, but I remember I got up the day of my trip. I got up, Ray, and I was like, I cannot stay here. If I stay here, my brother and my mom literally will not eat. They won't survive. So I call one of my friends, and he goes, Ariel, you can't stay here. He goes, I have $50. Come and get him and go. And that's what I did. I was about an hour and a half from the airport. And remember I called one of my close friends, and I was like, can you take me to the airport? And he goes, I thought you were not leaving. I was like, well, things have changed. So he didn't have brake on his truck. But he took me to the airport, to the Capitol. It was a nightmare to get to the airport, but we made it. But when we got to the airport, I had a big challenge. I didn't have a place to stay the next day because I broke up with my girlfriend. A couple of days prior to that, I changed my ticket to New York, but then I decided not to go. When I changed the ticket to New York, I was thinking, okay, I have a cousin. They has a friend in New York. Maybe I can call them up. Again, it was just all crazy stuff.
This is crazy.
So I remember I got to the airport from a public phone. I called my cousin, he was in Uruguay, and I was like, can you help me? Can you call your friend in New York and see if he can help me out?
Where was the phone call placed from? Where were you at when you called your cousin?
Montevideo, the capital of Uruguay. I called my cousin, and I told him what was going on. And he goes, sure, I can help you with my friend. But he goes, give me just a couple of days. I was like, I don't have that. I'm landing in Manhattan tomorrow.
So let me pause you because I think people are going to think, now what? This is so crazy. So bottom line is you had a girlfriend.
Right.
She comes to the United States. She wants you to come with her. Somewhere along the way, you guys don't make it. You break up. But you have a plane ticket.
Right.
But you have no money. And it doesn't set real well with customs when you pull into any part of the United States and don't have any money in your wallet. So you decide, I'm going to bail. But you know that at the same time, the pressure's mounting to take care of your family.
That's correct.
And your family says, yeah, you need to go. Your friends encourage you to go. So much so that a buddy gives you not $500, not $5,000, but $50.
$50.
And that was enough to push you over the edge. But then you get in a truck with another brother, or not a brother, but another friend, and he doesn't have brakes, and so you're skidding your way to the airport. You get to the airport, call your cousin and say, hey, I've now changed my ticket, not to Georgia, but I'm going to New York, and you got a friend there.
Right.
And that's all you got. It's $50 and a hope and a prayer that your cousin's going to call a friend somewhere in New York, and when you land, you're going to hook up with him, and you still get on the plane.
Yes, and I will
Oh.
take out the prayer because I wasn't a believer at the time. So I wasn't even praying. I didn't know how to pray, honestly. So, yeah. So I called my cousin. He goes, hey, give me a couple of days. I was like, I do not have that. I'm landing in Manhattan tomorrow morning. I do have a layover in Brazil. And then from Brazil, I go straight to New York. He goes, well, you crazy, but let me call my friend. So I left Uruguay. I boarded the plane in Uruguay, not knowing what I was sleeping the next day. That's how desperate I was.
Wow.
But I remember I got to Brazil on my layover, and I called my cousin twice. Right before I got in the plane to go to Manhattan, I called my cousin again. I was like, hey, have you talked to your friend? He goes, yes, I have. Here's the number. Called him up. So I called this guy up in New York, and he was also from Uruguay. He goes, hey, I know your story, but I can't come and get you. I'm in Poughkeepsie, New York, 2.5 hours from Manhattan. You're landing in 9 hours. I can't go get you. You have to get here on your own.
He might as well told you he was in Iceland.
Right. I was like, no idea.
And you don't speak English.
Nothing. So I was but I was happy. I was happy,
You
honestly.
were smiling.
So,
Hey, if you're listening out there, if you see a smiling Latino, just assume something good's happening.
yeah.
Really good.
So yeah. So I remember that I landed the next day, man, and I went through custom. Man, it was. I flew through it. The guy asked me how much money I had. I lied to him, and hopefully I can find him one day to ask for forgiveness. No, I know God forgave me already. I told him that I had $500. Otherwise, I couldn't make it. So, but I got out of the airport, and I was the happiest man alive. I'll tell you. And I took a taxi. A guy from Peru. There was a taxi driver. He took me to Kennedy Airport to Manhattan Grand Central, the train station. He charged me $45, Ray. Listen out there, $45. Back in 2002, that was a lot of money. I didn't even know.
So 50, now you're down to $5.
$5, but I'm in Manhattan. So, so I walk into
But you don't have a ticket to get to
I
where you're
don't. I walk into the train station, and I just thought about going to a police officer. Told him that I didn't speak English, and he took me to a police officer from Puerto Rico, which spoke Spanish. And this police officer, I believe today, that was an angel. He took me to the ticket window, and he bought me the train ticket for me. I think it was like $12, something like that. He took me to the train, to the door, and he told me, it's 2.5 hours. When you see the sign for Beacon, New York, get off and call your friend.
Holy cow.
And that's how I got to New York.
Wow.
So
you walk off the train now, and what next?
I called this guy Juan, and I didn't know that from back then from a public phone you have to dial 1 to dial the number, and I would just keep dialing the number, and the number was incorrect until someone else came to the train station. They helped me out. So this guy Juan picked me up. He goes, hey, I have to go back to work, but let me drop you off at my house, take a shower, eat, and then we'll get to know each other later. And that's what happened. So the next day, I was working with Juan's sister as a dishwasher in Cold Spring, New York. And the interesting thing is I came to New York with a little suitcase, very little. I didn't have a lot of stuff. So I started working at this 5-star restaurant, and you need a uniform. So I remember Juan and Angela, the two brothers, they took me to Walmart to buy me the uniform because I didn't have enough clothes, to wear. So
People that didn't even know you took you in,
yeah,
fed you, gave you a place to sleep, and bought you clothes. And I've seen you still have that suitcase.
I do. It's
And
in the book.
It's in the book, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And so you still have that suitcase. And you came to America, $50 down to $5. A police officer helps you out, and now you're washing dishes. What next?
I was happy. I was making $5 an hour, washing dishes, and let me tell you that what I've been doing in America since I arrived here is not hard work. Hard work it was back home, mixing concrete by hand, working out on the farm, long days, riding a bicycle for 10 kilometers after working the whole day to get home, and the cold weather, rain. That was tough, but working in America hasn't been tough, honestly. So washing dishes for me, it was like a piece of cake, and I'm not exaggerating. It was easy. So they saw something at the first restaurant that I worked for. They saw something in me that I didn't even see. They were telling me that I was awesome, and I was like, this is normal for me, So I worked there for about 6 months, but I started working also at the same time. I was working in a car wash and also in a chocolate factory in Beacon, New York. So I had 3 jobs for a while. And that's how I made some money. I remember my first check was $65, right? And I sent it all to my mom.
Wow.
Because, it was rough, and I get emotional because it was wow.
It's all right, bro.
I didn't even mention that in the book, but my first check it was about $65, and I sent it all to my mom because it was either that or they can provide, So, but it was. I mean, I love America. I made a lot of good friends in New York, and I think this is you can do whatever you want right here. If you speak the language, and your immigration status is okay, you can do whatever you want.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, pick us up where you want to in the book.
Okay.
I mean, what's next?
So that's all that is in the book and a lot more. So fast forward, I have two beautiful daughters. Angelina, she's gonna be 14, and Juliana's 12. I'm sorry, 3, and then Gavi is 9. And you're gonna see a lot of that, that story on the book as well. But I was married for about almost 11 years. But the interesting thing is, Ray, I never stopped living the lifestyle that I had back in Uruguay. Never stopped living the lifestyle. So during my marriage, I continued that lifestyle. And imagine that didn't end up well. So I started working for Chipotle, worked as a crew member when I moved to Colorado. And Chipotle was the first company that believed in me. They told me how good I was, and they sent me to school. I did a lot of courses through Chipotle, and a few years later, I was running Oklahoma and Kansas. From Colorado, they moved me to Oklahoma to be an area manager. So it was an American dream come true. I was making a lot of money. I had, a couple properties, a boat, jet ski, everything that you can imagine. American dream. But I wasn't happy. I was a mess inside. But back in 2016, I felt this desire to be honest for the first time because I was a good man. If from 30,000 feet, I guess I was a good man, but I was not being faithful to the wife that I had at the time. I was doing some things that I wasn't supposed to. But again, I'm not justifying that. But think about it. That's what I learned back home. That's what you do when you're a man. Just date, you go out, you do your stuff. And I knew that was wrong. But again, that's what I learned. And
it's easy to think that you've left your past behind whenever you come to America on $50. You make your first 65, and I don't think you mind me sharing this because I know the story. You went from sending your mom $65 to making a very solid 6-figure income. A kid from a farm from Uruguay who'd been molested, doing what he could to survive, making a really handsome 6-figure income, had the tiger by the tail, had a beautiful wife, beautiful family, and inside you're rotting and you're covering it all up, and it's tearing you apart. You're wounded, and you don't know why, you don't know what to do, and you're living the high life. I mean, talk about being at the bottom all the way to the top, and then you just started to spiral.
Yes, February 2016, that is when I thought that I hit bottom, but that was I guess bottom, but there was another bottom after that. I didn't know that, but so February I decided to be honest with everybody in my circle, and I just brought everything into the light. What I did, what I have done, everything, and that wasn't good. So that night I ended up in a mental hospital because I was done with my life. I was done with my life, but. So I got out of the hospital. I was there for a few days. I got out of the hospital, and I was a new man. And I wanted to do all these things that I guess I should have done before, but it was too late for some things, And
let me interrupt you there because I think I don't want to glaze over this. When you say you hit bottom and when you went to the mental hospital, you were thinking about taking your life.
Yes.
And you told me that it was very tough. You got there, they basically made you turn in everything. I think you told me they gave you everything except your underwear.
Right.
And you're in the hospital, and you're thinking, I think I want to get out of here. But then you tell the people in there that you're hearing voices.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make light of it, but it wasn't those kind of voices. You would say now you felt like the Lord was talking to you.
Right.
Tell us that part of the story before we get past the hospital part.
Sure. So February 6th of 2016, I was just done, excuse me, but also was tired. I was like, I can't do this by myself anymore. I can't. So I remember that it was about 10 o'clock that night, and I got off the bed, and I started screaming at God. And I didn't believe in God. First, I was like, he's not real. My whole life, I believed that God was not real. And if he is, he doesn't care about me. So that day, I got off the bed and I started screaming at God, like calling him names and asking him, if you're real, show it to me. I don't know if you're real or not, but show it to me. And at 10:30 p.m., I literally started hearing voices in a mental hospital, which is crazy. So, but I know it was God talking to me. I heard, I have a purpose for you. And I went to bed a little confused, but I got up and I was a new man. I had a mess outside of the hospital, and I was still in a mental hospital, but I saw the light for the first time. I saw hope, and I wanted to read the Bible. I wanted to write. And now, like I said at the beginning of the story, the first time I heard about the book, it was in that plane flying from Bogota to Oklahoma, but it wasn't. Searching through my stuff about 2 years ago, I found a new book that I wrote in that hospital. And in that hospital, I already started writing the book. And I never liked to write, never did. So I started writing the book in that hospital. So God was already giving me that vision. He knew what was going to happen to me in the next few years and what was going to do with Family ID. So the idea of the book, the vision of the book, came out of a mental hospital. Crazy.
Wow, you wrote your first parts in a mental hospital. So how long did you stay, and what was next after you got out? And where did you go? What happened? I mean,
I stayed there for 5 days, and when I got out, I went back home. But again, 5 days before that, I shared everything with my wife at the time, what I did, what I was unfaithful to her. I did a lot of crazy things, you know. So she didn't take it well, so she asked me to leave the house after the hospital. A couple of weeks after, I ended up moving out to an apartment here in Edmond, and things, man, went downhill pretty quick because I was depressed.
You lost your job at Chipotle.
I lost my job at Chipotle. I couldn't do it. I couldn't even lead myself. I couldn't even get out of bed. For sure, I wouldn't be able to lead 250 people, you know. So I left. I quit my job. I got fired, actually, from Chipotle. I don't remember if it was some YouTube, but bottom line, I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get out of bed. So I went from making $200,000 to $40,000. Now supporting 2 houses and facing a divorce. So finances went downhill very, very fast.
Right.
So we lost everything we had. Fast forward, so I started going to Life Church. My faith was going awesome. I got baptized 6 months after the hospital.
You found the Lord.
I found the Lord. And my faith was going great, but I was still going through depression, and I didn't understand it.
That's a key point right there. A lot of people think, oh, you know, come to Jesus. You hear the come to Jesus, and everything just, oh, I won the lottery. Everything went great. Your nosedive didn't turn up for a while.
Let me tell you, 6 months after I got out of the hospital, I remember I got baptized at Life Church on Sunday, and on Monday I was served with divorce paperwork. And I remember I just got on my knees and I was crying to the Lord. I was like, God, really? This is what I get for following you? I just gave you my heart on Sunday. But I didn't understand that, again, I was facing the consequences of my bad decisions, right? And yes, you're right. It took me about a year and a half, even with Jesus in my heart, almost 2 years, to get out of the pornography, alcohol, because I was addicted to porn. And porn, let me tell you, if you're listening out there, pornography is destroying the families today, all over the world, not just in America. And not just that, but pornography will trap you. And if you don't find help, you will lose hope to the point that you will end up taking your own life.
And you've said this before, and it always captivated me. You said that pornography made you feel hopeless. It was as if I can't break this habit, and so I'm just hopeless. And so if I'm hopeless, I've lost hope. And that was a point in your life to where you're like, why should I even be here? I'm so stupid. I can't get over this. And ultimately, you know, you've been freed from that with the Lord's help, and it's a daily challenge and accountability and all those things, but you found hope. You hit bottom. I don't know if we've hit the second bottom yet, but you moved out of your apartment to someplace everybody will recognize.
Right. So after about almost a year living in that apartment and losing all my finances, I couldn't pay the rent anymore. So I made the decision to support my wife at the time and my 2 girls with the little money I was making. And I just decided to move out of that apartment and sleep in my truck for a while at Walmart on Danforth and Santa Fe here in Edmond. I just went to the parking lot at Walmart and I was just sleeping there for a few days. And
You're homeless.
I was homeless.
And what time of year was this?
This was in February,
So winter.
winter.
You're sleeping in your truck
Mm-hmm.
at Walmart, and you're thinking, here I was, an executive, top of the world. Look how far I've come.
Mm-hmm.
6-figure, heavy salary, 2 beautiful kids, a wife, and I have blown it. I'm living in a truck at Walmart.
At Walmart. And
Wow.
the first day sleeping in my truck at Walmart, it was when I hit the second bottom. Because I remember I got up that morning, it was snowing, it was very cold. I went into Walmart that morning to wash my face and do my routine in there because I didn't have, again, a place to live. So I remember I came back and I was drinking a coffee, and it was just me in the truck. I didn't have anything. My family was not there. I lost it all, my finances. And I remember the Lord asked me one profound question. He asked me, Ariel, look around. What do you have? I was like, nothing. And he asked me a profound question. He asked me, am I enough now?
Wow.
That question, man, oof. That question was a good question, but it took me, man, I was like, yes, God, you are enough now. And from that day, Ray, it wasn't easy, but I felt that he started building me up from that day. Because I was still, I wasn't surrendered yet until that day.
Am I enough now?
Am I enough now? I was like, yes, you are.
And something really special happened. A friend of ours called you.
Greg Gunn, the founder and president of Family ID. I was already attending Fight Club. Fight Club is a ministry here in Edmond, Oklahoma. In Fight Club, we help men and women that are going through divorces or separation. We provide them with resources, and we help them to get closer to Jesus. And I was attending Fight Club at the time because I needed it. Let me tell you, when you're going through a divorce, sometimes you need 24/7 care. You do.
Yeah.
That's what we do at Fight Club. If you're out there listening, if you're struggling, if you know anybody that is struggling with divorce or separation, do not underestimate divorce. It will take you
And
down.
Fight Club is really about fighting for your marriage, and it's about reconciliation and
Right.
restoration. You may or may not be able to be remarried or connect
Restore,
back,
yeah.
restore. But it's also not just for men; it's also for women.
Yes.
And so you connected. You met Greg because he helps minister.
Life Church sent me to Trey Dixon, which is the president of True North.
Mm-hmm.
Another great ministry. Trey was my mentor. He still is. And then he sent me to Greg. I was attending Fight Club, and then I remember that morning, Greg, man, I think he just heard from the Lord. He picked up the phone and called me the day that I was at Walmart, one of those days, and he asked me, Ariel, where are you? I was tempted to lie to him because my pride was so big that I didn't want to help. So, but I was like, I'm sleeping in my truck, and he goes, no way, you're coming to my house.
Unbelievable.
And I remember that I struggled with that because I always struggled receiving help. I always did. I think it because, again, I learned that as a man, you don't ask for
Right.
help. So I remember I wasn't seeing my girls during that time when I was at Walmart because I didn't have a place to live. But one thing that I always knew, even going through the divorce, the only thing that I asked for, it was 50% of the custody. That's it. I was like, I told Gloria at the time, I was like, I don't want anything. I just want my girls. And that was good. That was peaceful. But at the time that I was at Walmart, I couldn't see my girls. But when I moved with Greg, they had a little apartment next to their house. And, man, I remember that evening I went out there, and the whole family, the Gunn family, man,
And there's a lot of them.
a lot of them, yes. It's like 14 of them. No, 7 plus Greg and Rhonda. So a lot of them were there, and they had a refrigerator for me full of food, a bed ready to go. And man, I started crying. I was like, wow. And they don't even know what they did. That's what they do every single day.
Yeah.
But they don't even know what they did that day. They saved my life. So we lived with them for about 8 months, me and my girls. So with Greg. So that was a huge, huge blessing. So, but I noticed it that after that day in the truck, when God asked me that question, again, I surrendered to Him. And we're talking about over a year, since I got out of the hospital. And you may want to think, okay, he met the Lord at the hospital, got out of the hospital, everything's great, but it wasn't. It takes a while. If you're going through some addiction, if you have some struggles, again, it takes to first make the decision to find help, but there's a process. It takes time. Even with the Lord. Listen to what I'm telling you. Even with the Lord, it will take a while. It took me 25 years to get there, so it's not going to go away in a month.
I think another thing that you said that's important here, especially for men, and I mean for all of us, is being willing to accept help. Anybody who knows Greg and his family knows what they stand for, and you think if there's anybody it's easy to take help from, they're so loving, so non-judgmental. And obviously, God was at work there, but you could have denied God's provision by saying, "No, I'm fine, man. I'll catch you later," and you accepted the help that you got. Well, that turned into something as well. That wasn't.
Right.
I mean, that's a big part of where you are today. So keep going.
So I remember that when I met Greg, he took me to his workshop, the Family ID workshop that we do today. And as soon as I went through the workshop, I was like, Greg, this is unbelievable. Providing or helping families to discover their identity is crazy. It's just, I never heard that before. We were talking about vision, mission, and values at Chipotle every single day. But for my family, I never thought about that. So I started volunteering with Greg, and then I think it was less than a year after that, I quit my job at the time, and I became a full-time employee with Family ID. And honestly, Greg, Ray, I look back now, and I was like, I travel the world, literally, with Family ID. I done probably over 200 workshops in different countries in the last 4.5 years, and sharing my testimony.
Well, if we were in a studio situation with a team, we'd be playing that Rocky comeback music about this time. Na, 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 na. I mean, here you are, man. You're coming out of the darkness, and you take a position, and now you're an international director, international speaker. You're traveling the world sharing your story. You've got a book that's coming out, and holy cow, you've married a woman that's in love with Jesus, in love with you, in love with your girls. She has a beautiful daughter and a family. She's a fantastic woman and beautiful in her own right. And your life is like back on track, man. I mean, what am I missing? Phil, anything I miss in there that you want to share?
Even if you're going through separation, even if you're a single dad or single mom right now, there's hope. I will tell you, read the book, and if you discover any emotional wounds, heal them. Find a solution, find resources. Again, we need Jesus. We can't do it without Jesus, but we also need some professional help to be able to heal. But if you don't heal the wounds, they will dictate your life. That's what happened to me. That my emotional wounds dictated my life. I can trace everything back to that when I was 11 years old. Everything I did after that, it was just to cover that and to self-medicate that, and you know what I mean? So heal your wounds. And even though I was going through a lot when after the divorce was finished and all that, I became the man that God always wanted for me to be. Always. I'm praying with my girls every single night. Even when I was, those 4.5 years that I was single, even when I was traveling, I would call my girls every single night and pray with them before they go to bed and read Bible verses with them and really guide them to Christ. And both of them came to Christ with me. And what I was telling you at the beginning, I'm grateful that I went through what I went through when I was 11. Because of that, I'm here today.
Yeah. Now, you said earlier that you had a second dream that you wanted to share. I don't know if you remember what that was. You said a dream come true. You had a first dream, second dream come true. I don't know if you remember what that is.
Yes. So the book, I think I was talking about the purpose of the book. The first one is to bring hope.
Yeah.
Which we already talked about. The second one is legacy. I'm first generation Christian. And my dream and my prayer is the 200 years down the road when I'm not here, my great-grandkids are going to ask, who was your great-great-grandfather that came to America? And they're going to have a book. They're going to read a book. And I write letters, once in a while I write letters and just upload it in the cloud for them. But this book is going to be a great GPS for them.
Yeah. Well, I want to give a shout out to your publisher because that's exactly what they're all about. Cedar Gate Publishing, they love hearing stories like this. They want to tell stories. They're all about legacy projects, and that's part of what you're doing. So shout out to the guys over there at Cedar Gate Publishing. They've really got behind you. They do a great job, the team over there. Ariel, you mentioned earlier, you just kind of came off so fluidly. if I'm listening to this, who knows who's listening all around the world? Somebody somewhere, they may be hanging on and they thought, I happened upon this podcast. Ariel, if I could have been there in that podcast, what would you have me do next? You kind of listed a few things, but if you had a chance to speak to that person, what would be the 1, 2, 3 next steps? What would you have them do if they're feeling these wounds coming undone and they're realizing them, but maybe they're at the end of the rope, they're thinking about ending their life, they don't think there's any way out of where they're at. I know you're going to tell them there's a way out, but they can't see out. You had 2 bottoms.
Right.
They may be at their 3rd or 4th. Tell us again, just from your perspective, what do they need to do?
The first thing is talk to someone. Talk to a friend. Talk to someone. I believe the enemy doesn't want you to ask for help. And the second thing, especially if you're a man, we're stubborn, right? And is recognizing that you're broken. And then if you don't know Christ, let me tell you, you won't be able to do it without Christ. You won't. I tried to do it without Christ for almost 30 years, and look at how I ended up. I don't want to do life that way anymore. So call someone, talk to someone. It's okay to ask for help. If you don't know who Jesus is, find out. Go to a church that will help you. And then for sure, find resources to heal your wounds. And
And
also,
you have some of those listed in the book.
yeah, there's some tips, there's some resources there. And then something else, Ray, is extend yourself grace. Because it's a process. Remember, even with Christ in my heart, it took me a little bit more than a year and a half to get rid of my addictions.
Yeah.
And they're there, but you just have those guardrails and you don't mess with that anymore. That's for me, that's just a door that is locked and the key is gone, because I believe that's a generational curse that we're carrying. Sexual abuse, pornography, alcohol. Pornography and alcohol, it took my great-grandfather out, my grandfather out, and my father out. And it almost took me out.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I started off this program by saying I had no idea. I can't hardly say that anymore, but I am going to start saying this. I'm going to start saying I knew him when. Because I know this story is going to get out and people are going to want to hear it. We've talked a lot about the book, but we haven't told people how to get the book. So how are they going to get this book? What's the best way?
We're launching the book in October. We're contemplating the first weekend of October. Just follow me on social media. Also, Cedar Gate Publishing, and it's going to be in Amazon.
Okay.
So we're going to have a big campaign starting next week on social media to position the book out there, and then it's going to be available first week of October in Amazon.
So how do people find you? You said follow you on social media. How do they find you? Do you have a website? You have a handle?
Yeah, I have a website, which is arieldelgado.com.
arieldelgado.com.
And also social media is Ariel Delgado.
Okay. So I'm sorry. There's a lot of English-speaking people out there.
Yeah.
And you're speaking very Latino on me today, which is great, and I love it. I do. But we got to know how to spell Delgado.
Yes. Let me do Ariel first.
Yeah,
because
sure.
there's a few ways to
Yeah.
spell. It's Ariel. And people, again, they said this enough to me in the years that I don't even bother me anymore, but like the mermaid. Ariel. Actually, Ariel in Greek, in Greek is Lion of God.
Awesome.
And then Delgado is D as in Delta. This is the mistake that a lot of people make with Delgado. They use the T as in Thomas instead of the D. So it's D as in Delta, ELGA, D as in Delta, O.
ArielDelgado.com. The name of the book, The Wounded Child, a real-life story of healing and hope.
Hope.
That's so awesome, man.